The October slide is so real. I'm just craving a day where I can kind of embrace the slower parts of this season of fall. So we're gonna harvest our pumpkins today and do a bunch of other kind of slow fall activities because I'm exhausted. Like when you have autoimmune disease, October slide can hit you really, really hard. It's basically like a very regular flare up that's just caused by like the changes in the barometric pressure and the temperature overall. And it just makes getting through the day like so much harder. Like I'm just in a lot of pain right now and I have really limited energy, so I'm trying to lean into that and accept it, lean into the season today. So we're gonna do one quick harvest. I'll show you how to know when your pumpkins and squash are ready to pick, and then we're gonna take it slow. I'm gonna show you some crafts that I have going on and we're gonna make a special fall drink. I feel like you can honestly probably see how inflamed I am right now. It's hard because I look forward to fall. Fall is my favorite season, but I also kind of dread it because I know it's coming. I know that the first couple weeks of October are always really, really hard for me and I have to pace myself very differently. This is the pumpkin patch. We're gonna be grabbing these white pumpkins today. I guess on this side, these are snowballs that my mom planted. I definitely planted like plain old orange sugar pie pumpkins and they still came out white. So I'm really curious to see if they're even going to be edible. We're actually going to carve one today because we're doing a pumpkin carving contest on October 21st through November 1st for the Garden Girls podcast. So if you want to submit yours, you need to go to our Instagram page, but I'm going to do mine today. So you're going to get a sneak peek of what mine is. I also want to harvest these corn stalks for decorations. This is flint corn. You do want to wait until the ears have turned completely brown and crispy before you harvest them. So this one we're gonna leave, but these back ones I already pulled. And I don't know if you've ever seen this, but in case you haven't, check out this root system that the corn stalks make. So these are brace roots. They help keep the plant from falling over, but there's one variety of corn in particular that has actually adapted to draw nitrogen from the air. So it's nitrogen fixing aerial roots. This variety is not doing that, but it's so crazy. Nature is amazing. This one has a hitchhiker. So I get really bad hand pain whenever I'm in a flare-up. It happens with overuse for me as well. But in a flare-up, it's scary. It's probably one of the scariest symptoms that I deal with because we use our hands for everything. And whenever that happens, I'm like, what if it doesn't go away? This rotating handle on these, it's really like a lifesaver in situations like this. Like I didn't know that something like this even existed up until last year, and now I could not live without it. It just takes so much pressure off of your hand when you're cutting. All right, I think we're gonna try to make some decorations for the greenhouse with these. I don't know. There's still a few more over there that are not ready to pick yet. Because I feel like I want that many for each side, or at least almost that many. So I might need to wait until I have more to finish this. I just love fall decorations and the cherry mums though. So pretty. I was gonna like wire them together and stuff, but I just don't have the energy. We can kind of add to that as I harvest more. All right, I'm gonna harvest the rest of the pumpkins now and show you what you need to look for to know that they're ready. But there's no way I'm carrying these from all the way over here, all the way back to the greenhouse to cure. So I gotta get the wagon, and I forgot my mom left me all of these ones. She needs them for a craft project, and these ones didn't make the cut, so I get to take these. my gosh. I feel like I shouldn't even harvest any at this point. There's so many here. A lot of these have blemishes, so they're not gonna store very well, but they'll be great for decorating, and if we can eat them probably in the next month, maybe 2 months, they'll be okay. You should never grab a pumpkin by the stem. It's the weakest point. If it breaks off, it's not going to store well or be as pretty. Oh my God, that's a lot of pumpkins. What am I gonna do with all these? I think this is one plant. Pumpkins do not mess around. You can see it's got powdery mildew. That's pretty much to be expected at this point, this late in the season. I would say if you still have pumpkins right now that are not ready, and you've also got flowers, you should be pinching those flowers off and maybe even cutting back the vine back to the point of where the pumpkins start so that it can focus its energy on ripening and not on making more fruit that it won't have time to reach maturity. So of course today we're talking about white pumpkins. I was hoping to have an orange pumpkin example to show you, but I don't. So it's a little bit different. With an orange pumpkin, of course, you want to wait until the pumpkin is fully orange if you can. A lot of times they start out like a dark green color and you don't want that. So we need to be mindful of where it is in its life cycle. Wait for it to be the color that it's supposed to be. White pumpkins, they pretty much start out white and stay white, so that doesn't really help us. Preferably the vine will have started to die off. Now, I'm being a little bit impatient here, and that's okay. Like, the reason that you want to wait as long as possible is because then it will store for as long as possible, which is oftentimes the goal. If that's not your goal, you don't need to wait as long. What I'll end up doing with these is a lot of decorations, and then if they taste good, which we're really hoping that they do at this point, I'll probably end up doing big batches of roasting them, pureeing that, and freezing it for later. The big test that we need to do is actually to just press our fingernail into the pumpkin, and you want it to be barely indenting the surface. That means the skin of the pumpkin has started to harden. The rind is actually pretty thick. That is its storage mechanism, so we need it to be as tough and strong as possible. The other thing you need to keep in mind when you're harvesting pumpkins is to cut the stem as long as possible. So you want to go all the way back to the top of the vine because that stem is also going to contribute to its storage life. You can, if you have a lot of pumpkins, as you go, start to sort these, maybe grade them a little bit based on which ones you know are going to store the best if it has blemishes on it or anything like that that will make it not last as long. Okay, so we're going to do the fingernail test. See this? Pressing down. You can see I'm pressing pretty hard. I'm losing the blood in my fingernail. And it's just barely making any sort of a mark. And we want to cut that stem all the way back here. Another way you can tell your pumpkins are ready is that they've reached the size that they're supposed to be for whatever variety of pumpkin that you're growing. These are a smaller pie pumpkin, so they're meant to have exactly enough meat in them to make one pie. It's also a really good idea, if you can, to harvest on a sunny, dry day, because the next thing that we need to do is cure these pumpkins, which we'll talk about in a minute. Oh, that's a big one. I don't even know if I can get this up the hill. It's so heavy. This was a mistake. I should have done half of them and brought them up. Well, there's my workout for the day. I need to cure these. I severely underestimated how many pumpkins. And when we cure them, we want to put them somewhere where they're getting a lot of direct sunlight so they can really dry out. And I just don't have room for all these. If I could leave them in the cart like this, it would be perfect because they actually get ventilation from underneath too, but I can't. So I'm actually just gonna line them up along the side of the greenhouse. As I'm picking through these, I'm looking for the one that I'm gonna use for my pumpkin carving contest submission. I found this really cute idea online that I want to try. So I've already harvested most of the butternut. I'll show you how many I got in a second. But this is a much better example of like the vine is starting to die off. So it's perfect time to harvest these. They're really hard on the outside too. I'm actually having a hard time cutting through the vine on some of them. So you won't get as long of a stem on your butternuts, and that's okay. You just don't want the stem to break off fully like at the base. Yeah, so those were like really tough already, which is a good sign. Okay, so these are the last two of the butternuts. We have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9 butternuts, and actually have some honey nuts inside too that are really tiny. So I don't have as many butternuts. The vines just, they don't produce as much and they take up a lot of space, but they're worth it to me. I love butternut squash. I would probably grow a lot more. I was trying to grow so many different types of squash this year, but the squash vine borers really decimated everything. But I am gonna be using one of these for the pumpkin carving contest. I just don't want to use it in a way that makes it no longer edible because they're so precious to me. So we have to figure out a way to do that. But there's a couple flowers that I wanted to grab to dry because I want to do kind of a fall wreath too today. There's just some really interesting textures over here that I want to grab. These are what the dried carrot flowers look like. There's some fresh ones. So this is before they really get to go to seed. So I think I'm going to grab a little bit of both. This is the area we've been trying to clear the tree. It's knocked over now, but there's lots of vegetation, interesting things to work with. And I remembered there was this teasel growing in here, which is a really fun fall decoration. May not look like much right now, but I have an idea. Well, this isn't just an excuse to sit down. I really do need to sit down. Like that whole harvesting adventure wore me out so bad that I started to feel nauseous, which is kind of wild to think that like just kind of walking around lifting very small things did that to me. But I also just feel like I need a minute to like force myself to do something not productive, which I feel like a lot of times like crafts and decorations can feel that way to me because my energy is so limited. I have to be really careful how I prioritize things at the risk of sounding really dramatic. Like you can get burnt out if the only things you're prioritizing and putting your energy into are the things that are productive. So I have this little grapevine wreath. It's really tiny. I need to find some bigger ones actually, but for our purposes today, I'm just gonna decorate it. I've got a few of the honey nut squash that never came to full size. They matured, but they just stayed this small, which I think is kind of absurd. Like they're so tiny, it's almost not usable as a food. I'm very curious to cut it open and see actually if it has like developed full seeds and everything. But wouldn't that be so cute, just kind of like wired onto this with a couple of the glass gem corn and some of the vegetation that we just picked. honestly don't love this. You need to make a lot of really small bunches, and my hands are just not working to do that. They're not working to tie these on securely, so they keep flopping. Like I want it to be more circular, and I need another piece here. It's good enough for now, and it really wasn't about the end result for me. I mean, the base is there. I think that with a little bit of tweaking, when my hands feel better, I'll be able to make it work. Now that I've made a huge mess of carrot seeds everywhere, I'm gonna work on my pumpkin for the contest. So the details of this contest are gonna be up on Instagram on October 21st if you're seeing this before then. But get your pumpkins ready, take a picture. There's gonna be a hashtag that you can tag so that we see all your submissions, and then we're gonna reshare our favorites to the community. If you don't already know about the Garden Girls podcast, this is a podcast that I'm doing with Amy and Meg, and it's really more just like a chat podcast. Like everyone says that it's really, really chill, and that's exactly what we're going for. Like we don't want it to be really overproduced or edited or scripted. We do have like outlines for the topics that we're discussing, but we try to keep it really fun and relaxed so it feels like you're just listening in on our group chat. I'll link the Garden Girls YouTube channel here. It is a podcast that's available on like Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We post like clips to Instagram and TikTok, but if you want to subscribe to the YouTube channel, you can see the video version there. I'm curious how quickly you'll figure out what I'm making here. I also don't know like what the correct tool would be to do what I want to do here, because I'm not gonna carve it. Obviously, I'm not like cutting out the center. I'm using the center, and like this seems really dangerous to do it this way, but I don't know what else to do. Why did I decide to do all of these crafts today that require like excellent strength in your hands and like grip? Like I am not in good shape to do this project at all. When I get like this with my fatigue, my problem solving skills just go completely out the window. Like I'm sure one of you is gonna be like, do this, like use this tool that everyone has in their kitchen. Anytime I use a knife on the internet at all, I get criticized for how I'm holding it. I do understand basic knife skills. It's just that a lot of the times the things that I'm doing make it difficult. Okay, no blood was spilled. Do you get it yet? Let's bring it outside and finish it. It's a little abstract, I'll give you that. But I'm happy with this pumpkin snail. I think it's freaking adorable. I didn't even know what I was gonna do with the eyes until I found the teasel, and it actually worked really, really well. This has quickly turned into a much longer video and day than I intended it to be. But I still really wanna make this juice. I've been looking forward to it, so we're gonna try. I cannot believe how big of a mess I've made in here. I just went apple picking, and I picked up some McCowans and some McIntosh. McCowans are my favorite kind of apple. So I thought we'd juice a couple apples and try to juice a pumpkin. I don't know how that's gonna go. I read on the internet that I can do it, so we'll see. It's nice and pink from the apple skins. I'm just gonna add a little bit of pumpkin spice to the top. Let's give it a try. Ooh. Oh my God. It tastes like really, really fresh apple cider. It's so good. Fall is by far my favorite season. I think the weather is perfect. I think all of the traditions around it are perfect. Like, who doesn't want a perfect picturesque day with a bunch of squash, some delicious food, some beautiful crafts that you can make from nature? It's like we get one last hurrah, especially in New England. New England is the best place to be in the fall. I'm not at all biased. We haven't even had the foliage really start to turn here just yet. It's gonna happen any day now. I really needed this. I really needed a day where I could just spend a few hours doing things that aren't necessarily productive or necessary to kind of lift my spirits a little bit at this time when like physically I'm just not feeling that great. Make sure you hit like and subscribe so you don't miss any future videos, and let me know what your favorite fall traditions are down in the comments. Thanks for gardening with me, and happy growing.